everyone. So, figured I'd discuss a little bit about the recent language finds. Down in one of the local groups areas, and they're gearing up for their fire season. Afternoon. So I'm down where the family group collects iron oxide to grind and use as fire retardant. They start grinding this stuff and breaking it out of the bedrock down here, and evidently grinding it all throughout this time of year. And it looks like there was a lesson here showing younger ones what look, that bright yellow ring or material that has a real thick presence of the iron oxide, the best to grind. And they've got a couple of stacks, like there's a stack down there next to me doggo, and over here they've been pulling it out of the bedrock. And yeah, people come down here too, but that particular rock looks like it's about 300 or 400 pounds, so I don't think a normal person's going to yank that out of the bedrock. So this is one of the things that this group does. Looks like there's another potential grinding stone there. One there. They haven't brought the big one out yet. And they've got their fight fires marker and a breaker tool, a nib in on it. I always leave their tools in place. They're not mine, and I know that they are humans and they are due the right of their freedoms and their protections, because, well, they were here before us. And if we can't apply the same social rules to them, because it's kind of obvious they use tools and they think about, the dynamics of their area, and they assist other groups. So they have cooperative community in times of danger. So hope this helps give some clarification on that. Let me get back to the reason for this show. So the recent kanji find. The very first Zhou period kanji that I found was in the Shaman Dogman's area, like last year, after he had a replacement chosen. And that kind of puzzled me, and I shared that with you guys because I'd never found a specific era before that. And then the location that I found the first Zhou period kanji, that's the calligraphy form, other than in the Shaman Dogman's area, is down in that little tiny bed system that I introduced you guys to. And then then the Japanese form. There's one other place I found Zhou period writing. Oh yeah, I think that was in the Gravel Pit Dogman's area. So I know that the Dogman in this area speak Chinese. Looks like they might write in Zhou period language. So that if I could ever get one of them at an angle where they're clearly laying down sticks, and then I go make a picture and film that would proof this potential theory. But other than that, without physically recording them doing the action, all I've got is grounds for evidence, a potential. But the new Japanese Edo period, I've run across Edo period language before, just never one that translated to the same thing as a Zhou period kanji. Now, the really interesting thing when you do a little research on the Edo period. Now, Zhou period is from like 1050 BCE to like 223, 224 BCE. And then the Edo period goes between like 1640, early 1600s, and then into the mid 1700s. And then it's Meiji Taisho period after that. And before is the uh, katakana era instead of the hiragana. So the language changed during that era because of the upswing in the culture with daimyo and samurai trying to distinguish themselves from the rest of the population. They actually came up with their own slang languages during that time period, which ends up with a lot of confusion because, for instance, the word for shoulder is kata. But if you say kata, means you have a sore shoulder instead of just a shoulder. And to try to talk about getting a shoulder massage, so it's kata 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 kata. So the words, oh, all become similar, just variations in pronunciation. If you don't pay attention, you aren't going to know the difference between a short kata and a long kata. You know? So that led to some confusion. And that's also, I've noticed a lot of the Japanese kana that I find is usually in the hiragana, katakana period. So it's that slight pre-Edo to mid-Edo period when they get into the calligraphy end of it and turn their writing into a form of meditation for Zen meditation as well, which is very interesting culturally in that era. So what was the other thing? Oh yeah, the Soto battle, or what we call Shoda period. That was a mythical time when Chinese invaded Japan and brought their form of writing, and it's kind of recorded as a spiritual battle because the people from China flew in on some sort of machines attached to their feet like little chariot wheels. You know, so there was advanced technology involved in the depictions. At least the era paintings and drawings all relay that. And then also in the Zhou period, when you start studying the artwork of that era, you get some other interesting connotations. Like the beginning of the Zhou period, there was a kickoff with the worship of the Monkey King, which was a new deity. And the artwork of the time shows basically monkey men jumping out of the planet Earth. So that's very unusual iconography to have associated with a pair of arrows where language changed. And then the Edo period, they used Chinese characters with katakana and hiragana accents. So you ended up with a layered, you know, they'd strip away some of the original Chinese kanji, add the katakana or hiragana, creating their own language. And it seems that some of the Bigfoot, the Skookum in particular, seem to have that language variation. And a few of the others that I've run across are all Japanese, like the Blanche, that sort of thing. So there might be a pair of language eras now that we can start studying that will give us even more clues if you have an inclination for language. And the other weird thing I had occur yesterday when I was back in the area filming, where I found the new kanji, the Edo period for way of writing. I uh, I tried to ask them in I tried different languages. I asked in Abenaki if we could be friends. I asked, or I said hello in Chinese, and I not did the other sequences. At first, I was getting negative responses. I even got about a 4 foot chunk of, 5 inch thick log limb thrown at me from the other side of the stream. Hit the top of a tree and dropped. And that's when I turned around. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm in your way. You're passing through. Let me get out of your way. And I pulled back. And then that individual actually came up and used the word, Oha. Oha is Sioux Indian for hello. That group might be actually Skookum because Skookum have a tendency to speak Sioux Indian as a native language. So let me get into some questions. Sorry, my allergies have been killing me this week. I have my inhaler with me in case everything goes ballistic in my lungs. Let me grab my glasses so I can answer some questions. And there also might be some language variations because of marriage ties between groups. They may adopt each other's languages. That's potential as well. But it's interesting that there might be a pair of time periods that are relevant linguistically that are already known, which is even better. It's maybe why the language programs can translate their kana and kanji so readily for the most part. Occasionally it has issues, and that might be where they kind of customize their language. Hey everyone, how you guys doing? Have you ever seen King Von in your dreams? Uh, sorry, I don't know who that is. Uh, Melissa finally made it. Yes. This was kind of an impromptu, I'm near a roadway between a stream, local fishing hole. Hey Justin, are you tied to the earth as people? The bottom line, people don't listen to us even though we are the first people here and know what is in the woods. Yeah, no kidding, Justin. Our lore preserves it. My grandmother, probably every other native grandmother, don't do this, don't do that. Don't whistle in the woods at night. Don't sleep in a cave you can't find the back of. That's all lore to protect us. That's all knowledge. And, unfortunately, the pioneer people didn't retain it and keep it. They'd know more if they had. Yeah, that's very true, Justin. Uscon, thank you for the information. Pass love. Yeah, you're welcome, definitely. Yeah, I aim to keep my grandmother's wish. Hey, how you doing, Elizabeth? Oh yeah, and I want to say thank you to Milady, another $15 donation. Can Bigfoot sleep invisible? That's a very interesting question, Ray. That is actually potential. And believe it or not, there are records of that with people as well. There's particular people that are from particular regions of the world will sometimes have a tendency to disappear when they sleep. South Americans can do that. Basque people can do that. Uh, some things are usually said about the Gurkhas can do that as well. Some natives were supposed to be able to do that too. Other indigenous lore around the world state that people can disappear during their sleep. I wouldn't, I mean, if it can happen with us, I'm pretty sure it can happen with them. Let me get on to some more of these. Hey Moon, how you doing? As there are many native tribes and languages in different areas who are close, the same as Bigfoot, or speak their own, and in our Ete language, not like yours in the area. Yes, I would assume that they all have adapted and have their own languages in specific areas. And there are stories of some regions where they speak Cheyenne and other various native languages, Iroquois, Algonquin. So there's probably quite a wide variety of different language groups. I'm just dealing with the ones that are most prevalent in this valley, which seem to be now a combination of Sioux, Peshat, ancient Chinese, ancient Japanese, Abenaki, and those are the basic five so far I've found with a lot of evidence thereof, either spoken or written. But, that's just in a 100-mile radius. I can imagine what's, further north and further south. Yeah, it's good to see you too, Ottoman. Oh, I don't have Cash App yet. All I've got up is my GoFundMe page, and still struggling to get things up on Patreon. I gotta finally have a set of kanji made up that are ready to go, so I'll have those up. Still trying to figure out the pay system. I can't figure that out. It just won't let me link up the way I'm supposed to, so I gotta go talk to somebody about showing my dumb ass how to do it. Eventually I'll get there. I'm just so tech ignorant. And, I'm used to tech from 15 years ago, and it's not the same anymore. So I get lost really easy. Maybe I'll take a class in this crap just so I can figure out how to use my phone. Pardon my French. Hey, Edward. I've had one Bigfoot person walk right up to me. I have my tree stand cloaked. I've seen him later, 9 to 10 foot tall, calico in color, black and red. Wow, that's amazing, Edward. I believe it. Uh, there were lots of old stories up here about, encounters being in a deer stand and they'll walk right up underneath you. Uh, Things get thrown at you. Sometimes your kill gets stolen. Go figure. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff like that from people up here in the Northwest. Some hunters, they actually make kind of alliances with them up here. And, when they go hunting in their areas, they'll sit and talk first, and then they go hunting. It's an interesting mix of people up here. A lot of fishermen here have encounters with them. Duck hunters have encounters with them. Duck hunters have a lot more encounters with freaking Dogman, though, it seems. And then loggers up here. Oh my God, loggers get harassed. Equipment gets pushed over. Yeah, no, there's some areas they just refuse to log in. Sounds like a couple of taps on the other side of the creek. So yeah, loggers get harassed really bad in some areas. Cash App is easy. Yeah, last time I used a Cash App card kind of linked to my phone, I ended up with my phone hacked, and I'm trying to avoid that stuff again. It was a couple of years ago. So I'm a little leery of that. I want to be able to set something up that's more uh, regulated and direct. Are you sure? Are Sabe most active at night and sleep in the day, or does it depend on the specific type or location? From what I've noticed up here, if they're anything like Jen, she was up like by 9, 10 in the morning. When it got warm, she woke up. She'd be up until dusk. She might stay up for a little bit after dusk, but she'd nap. She'd sleep 6 hours or so, and then she'd get up around 2, 3 in the morning. She'd do some early morning forage and go check her traps, stuff like that, when nobody was awake in the neighborhood. And then she'd go back to sleep for a few more hours. So it seems like they've got kind of a routine cyclic sleep. And in the groups, when they're family groups together, they're kind of up and down, and they'll nap during the day sometimes too. When it gets really hot, a lot of places up here you can find them 2 to 4 in the afternoon. They're napping in the shade. So I think they regulate their activities by the temperature and the available terrain to relax, and they have a really kind of easygoing lifestyle. They gather stuff, they nibble, they go take a nap, they go fish in the afternoon, they get together with their family around 4, they share food with their family, then the kids will go play, that sort of thing, everybody gets together, and then, everybody starts getting bedded down around dusk, and just the ones that are night owls stay up for a while. It seems like they're very human in their patterns that way, with like a mid evening break. So yeah, they'll be up at night too. But if you bug them at night, they get really offended. Um, they don't like being bothered at night. Uh, Probably because of the other things that are out there at night. You know, a lot of predators move at night, bigger predators. So there's that kind of possibility. Coyotes are out. Coyotes are a real bother for them because they'll go after their young ones. And I think that might be scent related. Because this is something even domestic dogs will do that people don't realize. Some of the reason why dogs will attack younger individuals is because they have a dirty diaper. If you have a dirty butt, dogs will think that's a sick creature, and their instincts will kick in. So I think that part of the reason why smaller Bigfoot might be getting attacked is if they aren't kept clean enough, that might attract your dog, a coyote, etc. Because there's a lot of issues at night with the coyotes going after them, little ones, and I've heard that kind of battle more than one time, and it's nothing you want to rehear. It sounds like a battle zone because yeah, I've done I've done pieces on that. Go find them and refer to them because it's not fun to hear. Okay. Alright, let me back up. I'm a little far behind here. Okay. Okay, I have Sasquatch friends in Finger Lake, New York, right on Elizabeth. My friend told me uh, they like doggy kibble. It's a possibility. I'll usually bring apples for fruit or watermelon. They really love watermelon. I brought jerky, fish, uh, sandwich meats, cheese, pretty much whatever we like. A lot of them don't like kick off with bread. They don't like it. Some really like bananas for some reason, and they'll peel them backwards, like the indigenous people. They'll peel them from the flower end, not the stem end. Unique way. Other primates peel them that way as well. We can send gifts, cards to you. Yes, I do have a P.O. box. Ray, did Jin Jen teach you something profound? Yeah, I kind of picked up a few things from being around her, I think. But she also taught me how to speak. Like the day we were intruded upon and attacked by the Gugway, that day she was teaching me ABCs her way. She was showing me how to write my name and how to do some basic communications with kana. She was showing me the man kana and explaining it could be flipped different directions depending on what kind of person you were talking to, if they were a dog person or another primate person, or more like a Janaskwa or Ishka that are again a little different. They're a little more primate-like. And the fierce men, you've always you've always got to keep your eyes down around the fiercemen. Because if you look them in the eyes, they think it's a disrespectful thing, and they will push you, attack you, bite you. They'll get mean. One I did that too, almost pushed me out the little cave. I had to grab the rock wall to keep from slipping 200 feet. Okay, Justin, my uncle used to war with, and a few rogue Bigfoot must really. He stopped on the edge of the woods, yelled into the woods, "I'm here to feed my family. I will leave you some." I'm done. 90%. Yeah. Yeah, I actually advised one of my friends who kept having his deer stolen. And he had the deer stolen 2 years in a row. He was a bow hunter. I said, well, either offer him a quarter, you know, offer him a hind quarter, or leave him beer or something, because some of them like beer, believe it or not. So he'd leave a hind quarter and a 6-pack. After that, he didn't get his deer stolen anymore. In fact, they kind of started herding deer towards him when he was there, which was interesting. They'd kind of scout with him, he said sometimes too. He'd see him off to either side. They were never aggressive with him though. They were just very interested in the way he bow hunted. He was native, and he had very traditional ways. So I think they just kind of adopted him a little bit. Justin, time no issues, rest of the time he was fighting just to make it out of the woods. Yeah, it also depends what comes into the woods. Because I've noticed here, some locations will get like seasonal intrusions by passing through groups that are maybe trade groups or foraging groups, but they're not always friendly. So there might be something like that going on too. Maybe another group of something else is intruding on the normal group that lives there. And then that can be very dangerous. There's something else that seems to occur in some research locations. Some researchers will go on for a year or two and have no issues and everything's really copacetic and the same kind of behavior, and then bang, they'll have like a week or two where everything's all different and they see different colored eye shine at night. And, to me that suggests there's a different creature in the area, not the same group. So there's that maybe to be considered. Okay. Edward, but then there are times they heard the deer, had the deer to my tree stand, and they'll tell me they headed them there too. Yeah, yeah, they'll do that. Another is it might also be that they have a cousin family coming to visit. Because I've noticed, like, along this particular waterway, there was a Skookum boy, or child, I don't know if it was a boy, that drowned, I think in 2019, 20, somewhere in there. And all of the family groups along this particular riverway got together where the child drowned. And throughout that summer and into early fall, there was a lot of trading going on, a lot of feasting, and other groups coming from other areas. There was a mock burial done, a little straw effigy to say goodbye to the baby. There was a site where you could tell the parents had grieved. There were bones, deer bones laid out, cow bones laid out, because one of the local neighbors also donated to their festivities. He left a lot of animal parts from, killing cow in the area for them. And they had a big celebration. They laid out prayers in kanji, laid out in the bones. I think I put some of those pictures up, or shown some of that in previous videos. And then it's, and that covered probably 30 miles of the river, up and down. up and down. And then east-west, there were family groups coming with runners, visiting, giving their condolences, that sort of thing. So there's a very social atmosphere here. And they, in some areas, they didn't want you around. Areas that I knew were friendly, they all of a sudden like, no, go away, family business, not welcome. So something else might be going on. We don't know because we don't have enough. All we have is ground support to go on. We don't have enough visual references. No one is be able to sit down, in a bed system or during the day with them and be able to film what they do, close or at distance. I've gotten lucky because I understand some of their behaviors, where I'll find them, uh, but before you can get in close enough to interact at that kind of level, they have to accept you. And that takes a couple of years. Just in some locations, to get the pictures I do, I've got to go in for a year, pretty regularly before they're like, all right, we'll relax. So it's also that, they've got to accept you to a degree before they'll ever let you get close enough to see what they do in their daily behavior. It's just unheard of. They don't allow it. Okay. Okay, autumn moon. Tao, no, Taos, and then Utah, say 9 pueblos, all speak different languages. We are next to Navajo Nation and Choco Canyon, Most America. Oh yeah, my grandmother went to that area. She said there were very mixed languages in that region, very many different distinct forms. And she also said that was a very ancient location where Sabe and teachers and little people and all kinds of ancient species lived all through those areas. The Tan-Need people, the Roundhead people, the Zhou, all kinds of different tribes lived in those regions, alongside of us. And there's lots of lore about, to this day, you don't go into certain canyons, so-and-so lives there, it's those people's land. Stay out of there. And it's still known. You don't go bother them. Caves in those locations too. Valleys, big places that don't go out beyond the Painted Valley. They're sacred lands. You just don't go there if you're not a medicine person. Sweetly makes sense why I have a young one with an adult in the backyard. We have a lot of coyotes here. Yeah, they're probably trying to keep the young ones safe from the coyotes. If you ever feel like giving them something, they would probably accept it. Especially if you recognize them, they'll have a tendency to start protecting you. That's what happened with my friend's property. Now, there'd been a lot of the abandoned dogs left on the property. There was a group of like 40 freaking dogs out there. So when the dogs were cleared out by the Humane Society and the land was converted over to the new owners, uh, the, the Bigfoot got a little nervous about who was moving in and, slapped on the walls and whatnot because they couldn't get down to the well water anymore. Arrangements were made. Now they protect the people. They just brought a dogman in when they realized the crawler was coming onto the property. So now they're also doing a defensive kind of positioning for that sort of thing. They protected their livestock up there. They'll shoo the goats back down if there's cougar in the area. They'll shoo the peacocks out of the brush if there's something coming through. So it's a very copacetic relationship that they've been able to establish. And I know that there's still a lot of rest land that also has that, and Native Americans that have kept their family ties with hereditary groups. It's just A lot of us haven't talked about it. A lot of us can't in some in some locations there are reasons why we can't. But it's better that we understand our cultures because I really think they are part of our cultures. We just don't know how they fit yet. There's just way too much tool use and way too much cognitive behavior. What's in their environment, what's going on, and what they can do to protect themselves, that sort of thing. Are you sure? Yeah, Sabe are so tall. How long of a strap is long enough for gifting them a bag? The one I made for launch, if I remember right, I used a 5-foot strap. You can use 5 or maybe 6 foot. The bigger the creature, the more they'll cross. They like to bandolier it. Um, but they will also just hang it on one side. I remember measuring him. So I had the width of the bag, which is I think 2.5 foot, plus the 5 foot for the strap. So actually a total of what, 7 feet? They'd have to pull it up to give it a little slack to put something in, then it'd hang tight. Those are some rough estimates for a bigger one. I have had the little ones take small bags. I one year that the dollar store, not to plug them, uh, sold a bunch of dollar bags that were all like not hemp bags, but they were burlap bags, little shoulder purse bags. I bought like 5 of those, and I went to different locations, and I would put goodies in them, like jerky, and leave the bag for a trade. I got trades at every location, so they really liked even just the little bags. So it doesn't matter, size. They'll pass them along, I'm sure. I know they'll pass toys along and trade toys too for little ones. Because I've seen toys that I traded in town show up 50 miles out of town. So I know they got a pretty decent trading route in this location. So I'm sure they do the same elsewhere. Okay. Oh wow, thank you. Thank you, Moon, for sending me something from New Mexico. Okay, the next question. I'm glad you like that story, Moon. Is this still live? Yes, Roberta, it's still live. I started about 40 minutes ago, and as long as my battery holds, I'll keep going. Okay, are you sure how to properly respond to what seems to be a gift? Very large branch was left on my empty kindling pile. The next day, another branch left to my answer. Oh well, thank them. That's usually the easiest way. That's what I usually do. Okay, Autumn. Yes. Oh, I saw those things are still alive here in the Southwest. Wow, that is so awesome to hear. My grandmother told me stories about when she went down in the 20s and 30s. She traveled extensively in her younger life, actually all over the United States, and so did her sisters. Her sisters even traveled internationally. I have got some of the most amazing family photos from all of their travels. Like, I have some really, really picturesque, though they're black and white, picturesque pictures. And even my dad, up in the Okanagan, they took a bunch of pictures in the Okanagan. I got pictures in the old Yellowstone National Park when it was not even Yellowstone, really, yet. It had just been founded or was about to be founded. And I got, told all the lore, different people of the different areas, and, the different ways we maintain good relationships with the different tribes. I'm glad actually to hear that so much of it has survived. It's been puzzling to me how much, because my family was kind of disconnected from the rest of our nation for quite some time, because we were trying to hold on to this lore and make sure it wasn't lost. I'm just trading a shadier spot. I find that are different in different places. Yeah, they are. Even in this valley, they're different. Hey, Trevor. Okay, sweet. I gave them a few crystals, stuffed animals, but they didn't like them. A beautiful bee that looks like a insect marble. Wow. He took the marble on top of crystals. I leave them apples later. So, nice. Yeah, I usually later do food. I haven't had much luck with marbles and stuff like that. I have never really done crystals. I always kind of followed what my mom used to do and give the things that, we realized they might utilize, and or the foods that they might like. And I have experimented over the years to see what kinds of foods they don't like. Some of them really don't care for oranges. Don't know why. So some of them have their likes and dislikes. And it's just up to the group. Yeah, that's very true, Autumn. Hey, Rosemary. What the heck? Sounds like there might have been a turkey in here. Are you sure? With such large hands, how do Sabe manage to use things like lighters? Well, I usually tell them to let the younger ones utilize the lighters, because their hands are smaller, can actually do it. Um, Other than that, you have to give them something that's got a longer stem so they don't burn their thumb. Because they can make this kind of motion or this kind of motion to make it work. But I always show them, and I let them know, the younger ones have got small enough hands. And an individual within their society that's 3 or 4 years old, they're already learning how to read, write, build fires, make traps. That's their teaching phase. That's where they're being taught all those kinds of behaviors anyway. Ottoman, you have so many more great histories and stories. He's sharing. Oh yeah, definitely. I've got to keep doing this. It's just too revealing of what's going on with them, for one. And I think it's really going to be beneficial in the long run to anybody seriously interested in understanding what they are. Sweet. Knowing there's a child or two, I just want to give them everything. Yeah, I know. I understand that. Edward, I enjoyed life today. You're welcome. Yeah, there's one individual youngster. He likes to raid campsites after people leave, and I've tracked him by his tater chip addiction. That particular youngster likes sea salt vinegar, sea salt and vinegar potato chips. He will raid them anytime anybody leaves them behind, and wherever that individual goes, he'll leave his little string of crumbs. Yeah, I whenever I'm in his area, I bring him some sea salt and vinegar chips, And he'll even come across the stream during the day just to grab him while I'm sitting back at camp. And I've got an agreement with him currently not to film, but I've got to talk to him and ask them if they'll volunteer to let me film them and see if they'll let me do that. Yeah, I'm really grateful that my parents and my grandmother and Uncle Long took the time to share this lore and their knowledge with me, because I wouldn't have much to offer if they hadn't done that for me. Hang out with grapefruit trees. I don't like them, but they like it. Yeah, my grandmother claimed that the Yering group that she grew up around liked grapefruit, and they'd also eat iris bulbs, which is something greater primates do, but humans who have a working appendix can also eat poisonous stuff like iris bulbs, and it won't hurt us. My grandmother used to eat iris bulbs with the Yeren group, and didn't discover until later that they were actually not a food source. She never had a problem with them. They soak them for 24 hours, and they kind of rub them on a stone to take that outer layer off, and then they'll eat the bulb. Yeah, thank you for eliminating the spam. Do Sabe get limes? From what my mother claimed, and my grandmother, no, they don't get Lyme's disease. They have a natural immunity to it, according to what we understand of them. And I also know that they can remove even tick larvae if tick larva bears out in your body. Because if you don't extract a tick correctly and the head gets broken off and is stuck in you, that becomes a serious problem because it then injects you with larvae, little eggs as a survival mechanism, and larvae will start crawling around in your fat layer. So they'll remove tick larvae like that with infrasound. So they'll real low, and I mean, your body shakes. You feel like your skeleton's rocking and rolling inside your skin. Your lungs and internal organs shake. You feel like you're standing in front of a bass speaker with everything going full blast at you, and you're just like vibrating in the freaking wind, so to speak. And it'll make you sick, but tick larva leaves your body. And according to my native grandmother, she witnessed in California when they were living with the Yeren on their property. She would witness the older taking tick out of the children's body and each other's body by using infrasound. And they did that on her a couple of times, and some of her siblings that had been nailed by ticks. So it's a known medicine, the way they deal with it. They probably eat herbs in the forest to kill parasites. And yeah, slow vibration too. Yeah, there is some suggestion that they treat themselves for parasites. I've seen some medicinal plants that are used for that. What are the other things? Oh, some of them actually seem to get poisoned out because I have found a location in a riverway where they're using iron ochre and soft lime because you can mix the two together. I think it's a 40-60 ratio, slightly more lime to the okra, and you can make a calamine lotion basically for poison oak. You can also use, which I've also noticed some groups will chew the stems, the fresh buds, flowers, and fresh little leaves from madrona. That's also another cure for poison oak that are both natively known. So one of the groups, they create calamine lotion basically, and I think they trade it because they also make the little moisture balls, but they make ones that are like fist size when they're brand new, and I've seen those traded all over this valley, and they'll get discarded when they're, you know, size of a quarter to a nickel. Usually the size of a nickel, they'll lose them or they'll leave them behind after they've washed out a food ball, a food basket, or a food roll, because they'll keep those with them wherever they are foraging, and they'll sit them in any kind of little moisture point, you know, that a leaf area that has a drip, or you know, a little sump spot in the top of an old rotten piece of limb or stem, just wherever there's moisture, let's set that little ball. And then they use the straws, and they'll use reeds occasionally to drink fresh water from a lower layer, you know, of infected water above, especially really murky, nasty stuff. They'll use reeds to get down in it and keep away from the possibility of picking up a infestation or illness. And that I've seen a lot of. I've even seen groups up north in Washington that take, I think it's alder, and they'll make it, it looks like a straw. It'll have a little shelf, or a little, not shelf, it'll have a cutout, so it'll have a pore spout, and it'll have the core removed. They'll hang the stick initially in a tree, and they'll let the rain soften the core, or they'll put them in water, and then they'll push that core out, and they'll use that for a straw, and it'll be 8-10 inches, a foot long sometimes, 18 inches, so they're pretty good sized straws actually, but when you consider the size of the creature, that makes sense. Okay. Alright, so we're going on to about an hour, and thankfully a breeze is starting to come up here. It's starting to turn out to be a pretty nice day. That's going to beat some of the heat today, thankfully. Just downstream from here is actually a deer crossing area that's pretty regularly passed through. So where you got that first set of rocks going across with the two real prevalent there and a little bit of water, white water, that's a high enough point deer will walk across there. And I'm pretty sure there is hunting that occurs on that trail. So I've said my little bit about, you know, the new potential language variation found, and you know, if there's some way I could document area even, you know, visually in association with the kanjis or kana from the different time periods, that would really go far. You know, it's also potentially a way of, you know, kind of understanding what might be in an area. If you can kind of pin down what the language is that's being spoken, then or written, then it's, you know, a little easy to determine. If it's a Zhou period, it's probably Chinese from Dogman species, and if you're dealing with Japanese, you're dealing with, you know, Guanche and Skookum people probably, maybe even Yer and other Bigfoot like that, Oma, the friendly Sabe. That alone could really save a lot of anxiety. Okay, milkweed, wild garlic kills parasites. Yeah, I've seen them eat milkweed. Jen would occasionally eat milkweed, and I realized it was for parasite control. She also understood that if she ate hemlock, it would poison her. Because she did that when the Gugway first impregnated her. And she did that again on the second time. And then the third pregnancy was ended because he beat her up. Yeah, no problem, sweetie. So, in my opinion, it's better that people kind of have a basic understanding of what's in the woods with them. Yeah. Except in the 90s here today. Doggo's already been in the water once this morning. I'm about ready to throw her back in the water again. And, hey, Jason. How you doing in the heat today? How are your parents doing? Hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, Ray, I think they do think we're peculiar for wearing clothes. Jen even asked me why I took my skin off. I know, I don't take my skin off, it's just clothes. So it's a different concept for them. At least some of them. However, there is one known individual in the Lake Oswego area of Oregon. It's an albino. He's big, he's a male, about 10 foot tall. He's been sighted repeatedly over the years throughout Lake Oswego area. And he will steal bed sheets off your, you know, clothesline to wrap around his waist because he doesn't like getting sunburned. So there's also that sort of thing that occurs occasionally. But yeah, I've also noticed, like up north, there was a group I was, trying to interact with and track. And I found an area where they'd been collecting, like, clothes. And they were laying them out kind of like the same way orangutans. Aho, Juanita, glad you're here. That was a definite knock from behind me. That's usually where they approach from. So yeah, there was a definite, they're trying to figure out front and back, top versus shorts or top versus pants and socks, and they were laying them out as if you were dressed. And I actually talked to Dr. John Bindernagel about that when I met him in 2009, the first time. And he'd had incidences in some of the sites that he'd been told about. They were doing the same sort of thing. And he was the one that noted that, yeah, especially orangutans will try to lay out human clothing and put them in pattern like you're wearing them. They're thinking about what it is, what goes on here, what it means, kind of thing. So there's some cognate behavior there in that type of behavior that they're doing. Sorry, I'm just moving stuff out of the sun. Yikes. It really has a great view. I love their hidey holes. Let's see if I can get the other angle up there. There's the other end of that downstream. To me, it's a beautiful place. And they'll build structures along this area throughout the spring and fall usually. Wintertime, the water's too high. Yeah, and when it's all green in the spring and the round grass is real high in the area, oh my god, it's picturesque along this particular riverway or streamway. It's gorgeous. It's unbelievable. It's like walking into a different place. You know, definitely not the city. Oh yeah, I love Oregon. The vistas, the views, the locations you can go, the places and things that you can see. It's just so diverse in this entire state. It's beautiful, and it's got so much to offer. It's so interesting in the ancient things that are still here. I'm looking Ray. I'm looking for retirement in Oregon, warmer than Washington, or is it all altitude based? It's slightly warmer here in Oregon, especially in the valley, because it'll get up into the hundreds here. You stay in the 90s usually up north, but you got, way more wind issues, 60-mile-an-hour winds around the Puget Sound, out on the peninsula. You'll get up into the hundreds. You'll get really nasty snow stacks up there where you'll get like 2, 3 foot of snow. Here you don't get like snow like that until you get across the Cascades, over the next mountain range, Cascades South Dakota range. Central Oregon will have, drifts up to 6 foot in the winter. Further you get over towards Idaho, the more severe the ice and snow, and the more extreme the heat. You'll get up into the 130s over there sometimes, 120s, I mean, 117. I've been in, I think, 16 below zero and like 117 just in Central Oregon alone. So it gets pretty freaking extreme the further east you get in this state. It's very arid. Okay. Is there a description somewhere of the Thunderbird tribe? Well, the Thunderbird tribe is basically just all of the Sabe people that are still part of that old tribe. And that tribe comes back from down generations back. My native grandmother said that Sabe considered themselves Thunderbird tribe 30,000 years ago. So that's still just whichever tribes are still marking themselves that way and participating tribally that way with their, you know, traditional trades and whatnot. I know that quite a few of them in this valley identify themselves as Thunderbird, and I know that my native grandmother identified herself because of the family marriages in our tribe, our human tribe with the Sabe people. She was considered Thunderbird. That's why, I have access to some stuff that I wouldn't normally have access to, like her inheritance, which is all archaic animals, what they call historic animals, which will be handed back to the Sabi at the end of my life, because there's nobody in my family to even go and look at them or knows anything about where they are. I'm the last person that knows where those tribal trade goods are. And they're not even here. I'd have to travel many, many miles to go to them. Not very true. Uh, what shoes am I wearing? Oh, I just wear these sensible things. A little lace up, makes it across the ground. It's 83 degrees here in Lacey, Washington. Wow. Yeah, we're scraping, I think, 94 or something today. Yep, 93 up there. Yeah. Yeah, fire season is horrible here. In 2019, 20, 21. Oh my god, so much of this state burned. It was just insane. And it took months to get some of them out. It was horrible. Even this valley was being encroached on by fires. Not cool, man. It was days and days and days, just smoke-filled skies. Yeah, this place turns into a tinderbox in the fall, unfortunately. That's why we get all, protective of our woods. Don't build any fires! Don't go out, don't do nothing. Make sure you got, pickaxe or an axe, freaking shovel with you, and at least 5 gallons of water, just in case you find something small on fire. Make sure you put it the heck out. And that's been a standard in some forests here. It's not even recommended that you go into some forests if you don't have some basic equipment or fire extinguisher, etc. with you at all times. Because, yeah, it can be dangerous. My mom and myself are waiting for my dad to come home. Don't know when. Oh, gotcha. I hope I hope he gets home safe, okay. Oh yeah, definitely here in Oregon. I'm in the Willamette Valley. I've lived here most of my life. I've been a couple other places, but I've lived in California, I've lived in Washington, lived up in Canada for a bit. I remember going in my grandmother's 38 Chevy through the Death Valley when I was, God, like 2 or 3. Felt like it was going to melt. It was to meet a relative of ours. She was, I think, 104 that year. So we went to visit her because, she wouldn't be alive very much longer. She was still in the same generational house that she was born in, that her grandfather had built back in like 1848, 49. Oh my god. That. You feel like you're gonna freaking melt in that area. No wind, just tumbleweeds. Optical illusions. Oh my god. Feel like you're melting from the inside out. Yeah, unfortunately, Ray, there's a lot of that kind of issue. Mainly in the cities. They clean most of it up out of the woods and surrounding areas. But there are just some places you gotta be really careful of when you're going out. Oh yeah, and this river is nice and cold. Because this is part of the melt off from, I think the Sisters Glacial side, if I remember right. So this river is always like, I think 48 degrees or something like that. It's always nice. And it's got some pretty good swimming holes in it in different locations. This one's got a good swimming hole and a good fishing spot. You can pull some good sized fish out of here every once in a while. I know a couple more that got good fish. Yeah, right? Yeah, and this got a nice little rock drop off in some locations too, where you can just sit on the side and drop your feet in. But there's so many little streamways all through, everywhere in this valley. And there a lot of locals will have, pull off spots and a way down to the river. Some rivers, it's you go along for miles, and everybody backside of their property is like the local hangout spot. All the neighbors get together. Weekends they'll barbecue, and the kids will be playing down in the streams below. It's a lot of fun that way here. But and when they fled, oh my God, get out of the way. Oh yeah, you have most of the lake fish up here, especially the pond fish, inside cities, cannot eat them. Those ponds are really, really polluted in most cases, and they don't have any wash through, streams that can flush them out. So the ponds stay polluted in their city areas and even on the edges of the cities. A lot of it's because of the mining that's occurred in this particular region and the logging industry. They dump a lot of nasty chemistry, and it's been from older times before it was regulated, that sort of thing, and it still affects certain regions here. So there's that. You have to kind of pick and choose which rivers you fish out of and which lakes you fish out of, because some of them are not good at all, unfortunately, and it's all industry related. Oh, Klamath Falls. I've got a lot of natives down there, Klamath Indians. There's also a lot of Bigfoot activity down there. And Klamath Falls area, the only thing you got to deal with is the Roseburg region. That's got a lot of nasty people in it. But those southern regions have a lot of mineral geysers and mineral springs and stuff like that to offer. So your waterways are mostly glacial fed through those regions. And they're really cold. Oh my God. But you got a lot of other access to other unique kinds of water, like mineral waters. And Ashland, they've got public fountains that are highly mineralized, and people will actually go to them and collect water from those particular public fountains because they consider them healing. They've got, enough content, mineral content and whatnot in them, they actually make you feel better when you drink them. They might have a bit of an irony taste in some cases, uh, but I like the mineral waters from those lower state fountains and waterways. Okay. I was saying, degree freezing trout off the mountain with snow, sentiments of the, yep, freshwater, lucky about that. Nothing up the stream, but mountains, yeah. That's always a sign of a good stream. Unless you've had mining up there. And let's see, yesterday when I went back in, filmed the location or the little dip down point where the structure was, just near where the Kano was found. I got tapped at there and knocked at once during recording. So I'm pretty sure there's some activity there as well. So I'm gonna have to go back and explore that. My friend's all excited. He's like, yeah, next time we're gonna walk to the end of the trail. Alright, let's do it. So hopefully we'll get to do that here soon again before the end of the season. Yeah, they pretty much, if you follow the basic, you look for a snapstick, you look for some of the basic markers like the X's for what you can spare, you know, the 7 for man marker, human being, person, whatever, however you want to think about it. Any kind of little structures, the unusual rock stacking. Um, that's pretty much you'll find anywhere. And you know, once you start finding the fresh snap sticks and stuff, you know there's faster at least. And then the rest, just you know, exploring and figuring out what's there. As long as you don't intrude too bad and they don't take it too bad. You know, like when I got the branch thrown at me, I apologized and I understood. Oh yeah, they were probably moving through. Yeah, they're probably following game in the afternoon or checking a trap and they don't want me near. Alright, I'll move out your way. And I apologized and stayed out of the way. And then they, you know, 20 minutes later, they were all friendly again. Hey, oh, man, how you doing? So, you know, it might be just that simple in some areas. You know, just have some basic respect. Realize that they're trying to communicate with you. And if you can figure that out and act accordingly, it goes a lot easier. They become a lot more accepting quicker. Google Taos, Pueblo, New Mexico, Red Willow people. Yeah, my grandmother talked about the Red Willow people. When you have time, at the base of this, yep, Rocky Mountain, New Mexico, Colorado. Thank you, Autumn. Thank you for reminding me about the Red Willow people. Would you ever consider being paid for taking a few people out to try and experience some Bigfoot activity? Yeah, that is something that's become a money maker for people. Let's put it that way. They're trying to industrialize it. No, I don't think I would. Would you want somebody tromping through your living room? It's disrespectful. You know, when my mother and I went into areas, it was never about going to look at them. It was because I was being taught something, or I was being introduced to them in their area, so that, you know, what our generational experiences of interacting with them could continue. They were introducing their young, my young to their young, etc. You know, sometimes we would see them, sometimes we were up close. Like the Ishka, my mom put me right in their freaking bed system. But I don't think it's appropriate to go looky-looing, because that's kind of what that's feeling like to me. There are a bunch of inexperienced people out there that don't know what they're interacting with. They don't know if they're red bone people. Sometimes they don't know if they're a human eater. And they're taking tourists out for a view to have either a spiritual experience, a psychic experience, or a visual experience with an entity that they know nothing about yet, really, to be honest. I think it's, if you're a researcher, I think that taking people into their locations would be the last thing you'd be thinking of doing. Because not only does that disturb them in their regular routine, it also disturbs their normal behavior patterns. Uh, Researchers keep having issues with stuff being thrown at them and loud knocking and screams. Well, that's all behavior that I understand as I've intruded. That's a no-go. I'm supposed to get the flock out, man, because they don't want me there. But, you know, researchers think that's a good sign. They're there. Yay, let's go forward. Let's bring people here. I think actually that if there's going to be an envelope that pushes the pushes the Sabe to a point where they just step out of the wood and say, fuck off, go away, it's probably going to be intrusive behavior like that. And the more we industrialize that kind of jumping from one hot spot to the next hot spot to the next hot spot. Right now, there's also a little tourist industry that's starting up with individuals that are going out with just bullseye lamps to hot spots so they can bullseye them and take pictures of them. They're not animals. That behavior is not going to make them like us. And if you're trying to research or understand them, that's not. There's no other place on the planet where you can go out and do weird shit like we're doing to them, and it's not considered disruptive behavior to the natural environment and the creatures in it. The only reason why we can get away with doing this weird shit is because everybody thinks they're a myth when there's clear pass-through evidence. Now, ground sport. You cannot. Everything that walks, everything that defecates, eats, drinks, sleeps is going to have ground sport. Because you can find footprints, because you can find foraging behavior, because you can find kana and snapsticks and etc. Woven plants. All of that is ground spore that denotes there's something there that's real. Just like bear spore is real, deer spore is real, baboon spore is real. So no, I think that behavior on our part is destructive. You know, we're not even learning what we're trying to show off. It would be better if we focused on understanding what's on our property, learning how to establish good relationships, you know, figure out how to interact and which ones are dangerous. Then we can go to the steps of educating each other and teaching each other what we have already been able to confirm, that we have on film, that we've been in contact, etc., face to face. A lot of it also seems to be the behaviors that they have are very misunderstood. A lot of people don't understand why they do some of the weird stuff they do. But when you start thinking about it, it's not really that weird, you know. Just put us in their position. You know, you're living in the woods, you've got your family, your kids there. Oh my God, a whole group of people come in with a bunch of cameras. Oh shite, let me get my kids undercover. Let me hide my food. Don't know if they're going to steal it. Oh God, what do I do? They're feeling intruded upon. Though everybody says, let's preserve them. Let's not encroach on their environment. First thing we do is the exact opposite. So we're spouting idealism on our mouths on one side and practicing something else in our behavior entirely different. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Not to be a prune, but to be a prune. Now I would consider taking people into an abandoned bed system or a stable location where there was evidence, but there was no chance of really intruding on the group. Yeah, I'd be willing to show people ground score and walk them through what's in the areas so that they could then identify the same things in their areas. But to intentionally go in to have an experience, I don't think that's appropriate. I think it's intrusive. $1,300 to $1,500 publicum. Strata and biblical filings, Christ. Yep. Yeah, that's also Thunderbirds had interaction with that as well. That's why there's still the Thunderbird Society in some tribes. I didn't think of it that way. You're right. I was thinking about the help with experiencing them. Yeah, it would help to experience them, but it would be probably really nice if we could get him to interact with us in a congenial way and be able to offer maybe a more educational experience, not such a reactive experience. Because the only way you can really learn about something is to either be able to sit down next to it or sit down with somebody in the area. You know, like I was taught. You know, sat down in the area. That's what this means. That's what that means. This is what this behavior is about. Like this stuff here, you know. This is all you know, preparing to help each other with forest fires and blaze pathways through fires so they can walk through fires to retrieve young. You know, that's their fire response. And that goes on up and down this river all until about October. You know, when the end of the fire season finally comes. These piles of stones will be like this. And then they're all gone by the end of the year. Oh wow! Happy birthday! Awesome! Uh, Ottoman hunting grounds went all the way up to Oregon, Tasna, Arizona down to Texas. We traveled coast to coast, Taos, runners. Yep, yep, my grandmother said the same. She knew that. Many tribes know them 7 feet tall. Yep, men and women. Yeah, tribes of the Sabe. You are so correct, Autumn. Yeah, you are. Trevor, may I ask, what is Thunderbird, please? Well, Thunderbirds, there are different types of Thunderbirds. There are three that I'm aware of. There's the Thunderbird that looks like a big eagle, but he's got an orange beak and orange feet, and he's a lot bigger. And he kind of looks like a golden eagle, and then he turns kind of blue blackish when he gets really, really old. And they're said to live a very, very long time. And their wingspans will get bigger than a condor's. So, you know, 6, 8, 12 feet. Then there's the ancient spiritual creature that's called a Thunderbird. It's a creature that supposedly creates windstorms with its wings and can create lightning from its body. And it brings storms. And it's said in some tribes to be a spiritual creature only, and other tribes it is seen as an ancient creature that that's what its sound effects were, that's what its abilities were. You know, so there's different lore about it. And then the other one is ancient petrosaurs, petrodactyls. That supposedly there's still families of those things that are surviving. There've been sightings in Montana for years. The cave systems all over Montana have petrodactyls in them. Even down in Arizona, there've been sightings. The bigger ones, pterosaur, that sort of thing. Smaller ones are pterosaur and tetradactyls are the bigger ones. Some with tails, some with no tails. The ones that fly over Oregon have tails. I've never seen a tailless one. At least not yet. And then you have the tribal people that were around at the same time as those original flying dinosaurs. They're the people that keep them. Those are the Sabe Thunderbird tribes. They're specifically, they handle ancient historic animals like that. That's what they do for their community is they maintain them and they safeguard people from them. Part of the sounds of the Sierra Sounds is actually a situation like that because there are a couple of calls throughout that sequence of sounds that don't belong to Bigfoot or Dogman. There are also other recordings that I've heard where you'll hear a clack, you'll hear what you think might be Chinese or Japanese, you know, samurai chatter, and then you'll hear a roar or you'll hear communication between something far larger and something far smaller and directional clack clack, you know, moving the creature. So there's still keeping some of those creatures as herd animals, as egg layers. And they feed them, they keep them away from humanity, and they trade throughout their tribal system. So there's that. That's what I understand as the Thunderbird tribe. Then you have the Native American connection to the Thunderbird tribes through marriage or agreement or trade, and they became part of the Thunderbird Society. So those are the different layers and levels that I'm aware of. All through the Confederate, this old Sioux, but originally we had 7 family groups, 7 tribes. We didn't really have to call ourselves tribes, they were just big family groups of nations that were the same. We all talked together, we all had marriage ties, we all had trade agreements. They had connections with the Sabe, and they had agreements in trade, and it's from that era that the Thunderbird societies that came down through the tribal systems. So there was still in the 1800s an understanding of that sort of thing. Anna Weiss's registration book listed her as a Weissa, in quotations, Thunderbird Albertson. She had a European last name, and her listing number 1358 out of 2,253 people, I think, something like that. That was a band, a big cousin group of families that was collected up. Yeah, and thank you everybody for helping me out, supporting me, liking my content, sharing it around. I really appreciate you all. So glad you're freaking iron nails. I'm glad you enjoyed my content, and hopefully I can get out and do some more as soon as the heat wave stops. But I'll do what I can in the locations that I've got going on. Okay. I'm glad you're learning a lot, Jason. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. Yeah, anytime, guys. Okay, Lisa, what are the ones that fly around the Four Corners area? There are a couple of different things that might be flying around the Four Corners area. There was supposedly Four Corners and above. They had flying heads. They supposedly had octopus-like tentacles. There's lore about that stuff. There's a Mothman-like creature or a goat-like creature that's supposedly in that region as well, and up through the Pine Barrens. Yeah, there's lots of lore. Just kind of depends. I've never been to those regions, so all I have is old stories to go on, old lore about the regions. I do know that, there's some peculiar things that have happened in regions, where iron gates have been put in there just way too big for anything. And the funny thing is they always have a lot of guano on top of them. And then there's just a lot of Pennsylvania area, Greater Lakes area. There's a lot of Thunderbird lore around that region and on down, southward and some eastward of that location. So it just kind of depends what your local lore talks about. It's probably there. And the more you look at your area, the more the old lore turns out to be real, it seems. Let's see. According to my grandma's lore, the flying heads were pretty large. 9-ish, 10 feet across. So they basically could just eat you whole. She said that their hair was like tentacles, and that they had wings of some kind that they flew or fly. And they come out nocturnally mostly, from what I understand. And they would, grab you with their tentacles and push you into their mouths. There was also some sort of a thunderbird in the area that was, I think, known for picking people up at night too. Just like the California area, there's a region. Let's see, it's between Long Beach area and up through to the bottom end of Napa Valley. They used to be sightings all throughout that region of a really large bird that could pick you up. And I think the last time somebody was picked up by a large bird, say back in the 70s, if I remember right, a teenager was picked up and flown quite some distance before he was dropped again. So there's that potential too. And I'm discovering that some of the lore that I thought was no longer relevant is still relevant, surprisingly. And one of the other things I wanted to brush on was I've done some research into Peru's face peeler. Has absolutely nothing to do with my native lore's face eater. Face eater is a cryptid that swallows or engulfs your head with a membrane, and it's got acid that it dissolves your skull in, and then it just kind of removes your top, and then they haul your body away for later consumption. The face peeler down in Peru sounds way more like animal mutilation stuff, space aliens or dark op base crap, hidden bases and their stupid shit. You're putting a cream on somebody's face and then removing it with a laser scalpel. Yeah, I don't think Bigfoot do that. I think that's more probably related to cuckoo scientists. And the fact that the face peelers arrive on hoverboards and fly off on hoverboards, and they're dressed in dark clothing, that don't sound like Bigfoot, and that doesn't sound like a cryptid. That sounds like modern tech and some really sickening behavior. Oh yeah, it is very nice. I'm sitting up underneath a structure that still is growing, so it's a good shady point. And then the stream's just right there. Love it. Okay, Trevor, do you know if Sabe is in all of the countries around the world? Are they just in certain countries? I believe they are in every country. Not all of them, though, I think, are Sabe. Like, the more I learn about the Australian Yahweh, they seem more like they might be Gugway or Boogers, or they seem to be a lot more aggressive throughout most of the regions. So there might be some isolated pockets of some really nasty ones in certain locations. Finland, they've got some trolls that are still evidently able to tear apart military guys during World War II. Russians lost a battalion, and Americans, I think they lost some people in that same region. So I'm sure there are some cryptids throughout the world that we still haven't even really had any good information or contact about, except with ancient stories and lore, which we now disregard as fairy tales. Maybe we should reconsider that assumption, because the more you look into the different cryptids around the world and in different locations, the lore, even the European fairy tales are not really fairy tales. I think those European, those ancient people were actually talking about creatures around them and things that they interacted with and knew about. So that's why I always say refer back to your lore, any local lore, anything you can find, any indigenous lore, any folklore that's even like referred to in European countries, because it might be very relevant. Hey Autumn, they are starting to see them again. Thunderbird, Grand Canyon, Navajo Nation, Southwest Canyons. I think they, yeah, travel Turtle Island. Yeah, awesome. That is so good to hear. My grandmother claimed there was a really ancient location in those reservation lands that had a massive uh, carved Thunderbird that was paleolithically carved. You know, it sits with the head looking out over a valley. It has the wings represented in the front of the body and in the protrusion of the cliffside. And then there are steps that went up around its wing, up to its shoulder. And then behind that was a great nesting area at one time that had all kinds of stuff, including saber-toothed tigers. You know, very different region, very vast, full of all kinds of things like that. She'd been to it. Bigfoot Society had a recent podcast where the lady thought some Bigfoot are small because of genetics. There is the Pugway. The Native Americans in some regions talk about the Pugway, Pedidwe, and a couple other names for them. They're small ape-like, you know, 3 foot, like dwarves, 4 foot maybe. They're really vicious, a lot of them, and they like to hunt in groups, and they'll go after people, and they'll torment you, that kind of thing. So there might be also some other remnant humanoids that are far more like Lucy. You know, Lucy was a small creature. The other archaic humanoids like Florensis, they were small. So you know there might still be some sort of archaic humanoid that's more like a primate still. That's not even like a Bigfoot or us. You know, it might just be another archaic creature left that's still around. You know, that survived. Yeah, Hawaiian Islands have a lot of records of little tiny cryptids, and they're really, really afraid of them. They think they're very vicious. I think we're starting to realize that now. Yeah, yeah, it's not just mythology and folklore; it's the truth of our world. Yeah, these educational systems have turned the truth of the world into mythology. Yeah, it's easily recovered. They keep publishing it. Okay. Hey, welcome back, Jason. Went to get lunch. Oh, cool. Oh, thank you, Autumn. Yeah, my grandmother claimed it exists. She even drew a little picture of it. And somebody, I think last year, did a short and posted it on YouTube. So I was really glad to see that. And confirmed for me that my grandmother was, you know, describing the area the way she remembered it and seen it. So, you know, I think there are a lot of things that are hidden all over this world that we're learning to remember again and learning where they are again. But, you know, we gotta kind of take a more respectful avenue. I think, I don't think we're considering what we might be around. You know, how that might affect them. Because I've noticed more and more the ones in this valley, that the Sabe people in this valley, they keep getting freaking dogmen to protect themselves. And part of it's because we've got an influx of more nasty cryptids coming through, it seems, in a couple of different locations. But I also see that kind of behavior where people have gone out repeatedly in research areas. They're starting to arm themselves up with dogmen. That means that they're feeling like they need to protect themselves against an invading force. That's not a good sign. They're willing to take on another mouth to feed to protect themselves from us. Maybe we should change our attitude. Maybe we should think a little differently. Might be beneficial. Because I can wait, I can just see this potentially going the wrong way. And then that would be horrific on both ends, because if something does publicly happen where it's witnessed, I believe me, the government's going to all of a sudden be all over that shit. And anybody going out and doing any research, that's going to be gone. All those areas are going to get locked away, no public access, yada yada. Property might even get freaking, how would you say, acquired, you know, eminent domain away from landowners. So there are other considerations that people aren't thinking about either. In the event that something horrific does ever happen, that can be really drastic for any kind of further research. Yeah, I do. My grandma was quite a woman. She was... I remember when I was 10 years old, taught me how to do cartwheels. She was in her 70s. She went out in the front yard and did a cartwheel. All her neighbors freaked out. Don't do that, you'll hurt yourself. Yep. She's quite a woman. Very active. I mean, she started her life as a horse trainer and bronc rider. She broke horses, and her family sold horses to the American cavalry before we had tanks. Back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So she was always very active, even for everything that she'd been through in her life. She was just a wild, incredible person. So well educated in so many ways. She knew her Lord. She really understood a lot of things. She had a really good memory too. Roberta, I was at a nursing home with my mom when this started. I'm home now. That's why why you disappeared. I wonder if, I wonder if there is still a lot of Native American lore that the people won't come out and speak about still. Oh, I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. A lot of it, it's considered sacred knowledge. And at this point, you got to protect the ones as much as you can on tribal land. So that sacred knowledge is, going to be kept quiet. But, there's some of it where they're not on tribal land where they don't get the protections from that kind of situation. Sometimes it might be better to know a little bit, just to safeguard our own modern community. It'd be better not, to know not to go into an area because there might be a giant, or it might be red bone people that'll eat you. I think it would be more advantageous to know that. Don't go into that canyon. A Thunderbird might grab you. I think that's just a neighborly thing to do. Try to protect each other, and also safeguard the creatures that live in those locations so they are no longer disturbed, and they don't get a bad rep, and they won't be hunted out or destroyed at that point. Us learning a little bit and knowing when to stop, might be the best thing for now. Yep. He's, Ray, my mother told me that tribe's name just means people. Yep. Yes, it is true. The people. That's exactly what it means. Because that's how they referred to themselves, as people. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the fact that I had her as a grandma. Oh my god, that woman was so strong. So I think I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes. And then I'm going to take my napping puppy out of the shade and make sure she gets into the water again. But I just kind of wanted to do a little bit on the two potential timelines for language that at least gives a potential grouping, you know, potentially that Zhou period language belongs to the Dogman, because I found it in 3 different potential locations too that I know Dogmen are in. And then the other Edo period, Shodo era, Japanese kanji way of writing. So that gives us 2 time periods, and I think that group's probably Skookum or Guanche or something like that, because of the Sioux Indian that was spoken. So, time will tell, but it's maybe a start point for trying to start classifying language as to species type, potentially. It's an avenue at least, you know. And you know, the more kana and kanji that's collected, the more coincidentals that we're probably going to run into like that, where we find 2 different kanji or kana types that both translate the same way, and they're, you know, completely different time periods. It's nice that, you know, I've finally been able to narrow down about an 800 to 2,000 year time period, where there is some modern history and record of those languages. Which means, you know, now I can go back through some of the old listings, because they used to be learned by reading and identifying each piece and sounds associated, etc. So there's lots of lists, old lists of the kana types and kanji types. So I might get really lucky and might even get to a point where I found enough from those time periods we can start comparing them to what's, you know, still in our written record. That definitely puts them in the category of humanoid, though, because they utilize language. And, you know, just because they don't write on paper with a ink pen or a brush isn't anything. We don't know how we wrote originally. We have no idea. We only understand how we wrote after we invented pen and paper. Before that, we may have laid out sticks just like they do. We don't know. We've only got theory. So to try to discount the language just because it's, you know, written in sticks, that's kind of like discounting our origins too, because we don't know a lot about how we started our language or what the steps were to get to written and spoken and historical documentation. We've got little fragments, you know, cave paintings here or there, or maybe some carved stuff on a bone, or something carved into stone that looks like language. Well, that's still, you know, 30, 40,000 year old material there, so to have people, you know, have creatures that identify themselves as people or persons writing in a potential archaic, I don't think we should discount that. I think we should examine it. I think it would be better to examine it. Okay, Roberta, have Thunderbirds been known to eat people? I believe, my sister believes she saw one. Yes, Thunderbirds, not the feathered ones, but the, you know, dino version. The plesiosaur, petrosaur, excuse me, and pterosaurs. In fact, there's in the, let's see, Papua New Guinea, there's a fellow biologist that's been down there for 30 plus years studying what he calls the ropen. And the ropen are a pterosaur that is a flying dino. And the last person that was recorded being picked up out of their sweet potato patch was a guy back in the 70s. He was eaten in the middle of the village up in a tree by the pterosaur that grabbed him. It looks like people are here, so I might have to shut this down. I don't know if they got a dog with them, so I might have to. It just kind of depends on what comes down. Could be a guy fishing. Uh, hey, doggo, it's alright. Yeah, there have been at least in Papua New Guinea, and I believe that was international news, and I believe it was written up in newspapers internationally as well. So there's a potential that we definitely found evidence of in manuscripts. And when you look up the Ropin, he's written several books. This guy's written several books about them, and he's basically spent quite a lot of time documenting them, identifying where they're at, identifying their diet. He knows actually quite a bit about their territory, about their behavior. He understands they have a glowing ladder in the front of their chest that glows at night like a big ember. So he's got a lot of details about what the locals there call the Ropin, but that's still, it's a flying dinosaur. So I would start with that sort of thing because it's so well documented. What do people, Ray, do? What do people that become skinwalkers seek to achieve with their transformation? Well, they're doing it in a malicious way usually. They're trying to get even with people. They're trying to get revenge on a particular family or revenge on life, so to speak. Because some of the stuff that you have to do to become a skinwalker is really, I wouldn't do it. No, thank you. It's very dark. You have to eat one of your own family members and kill them. No, thank you. So a lot of that is very dark, and I think they're hoping to achieve some form of immortality out of it, or power. But, the side effect of skinwalkering is that you get to a point where you can no longer become human. You just become the creature. And then you're stuck that way. So, it's a curse, too. It's just not a path I would choose to go down, personally. I think it's not good. And, that might be why we got such predatory creatures in some areas. Maybe there are other forms of skinwalkers out there too that we aren't aware of. Okay, Roberta, I'm sorry, my vision isn't that great. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no problem, guys. You're welcome. Oh, yeah, family coming to go swim. Awesome. Doesn't look like they got a doggo, so that'll be cool. I can still let Karma loose down here and let her get wet. Because down in the state of Oregon, you're allowed to have your dog off leash if she's, or he, is within 10 feet of the water's edge or in the water. Otherwise, your dog's got to be leashed or in some way secure. And I have always considered that good advice. And it's not necessarily because of people or other dogs, but you never know in this region when you're going to run across a cougar, a bear, a coyote, a wolf. And I'm sorry, it's probably better that you have control of your animal than to allow it, to accidentally be attacked because it's gone up to interact with a creature it shouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad I had time to do this a little bit today, and probably do another one here soon. Some people have suggested that I do a piece on little people. I'm seriously going to do some research on them though, because I've never run across them here. The only thing I've ever run across here that might be a little person of any kind, and to me it's more like an archaic animal. But I think they might be sentient, and that's that little crown gremlin thing. And there are quite a few people that have had sightings of them. I've been actually thinking about sitting out and, with a sign at down maybe at Cottage Grove Lake with, under the hat interviews. You want to tell me about cryptids, Bigfoot, unusual things. Kind of give your opinion on what you think. And, just sit for a day and see if anybody engages me and what they might say about some of the local flora and fauna. I might even do a public announcement for something like that. Maybe I'll go down and just sit for a couple of hours and see if anybody wants to come and tell me their story, or maybe they'll come forward at the lake. Because I've had that happen before. I've sat with people. We had a couple of years ago one of the local Bigfooters. He likes to shoot off an air rocket cannon thing, shoot tennis balls in the lake, which technically he's not supposed to do that because that lake is under Army Corps of Engineers control. You're not supposed to add or remove anything from that lake because of the sensitive, it's a water supply. You're not supposed to taint or pollute that, and they take that very seriously. So I don't know why he hasn't been talked to about his behavior, because it's simply not allowed. I mean, you can't even so much as take clay from one area and bring it there. Even though it's clay from this valley, you can't cast foot tracks down there. Bigfoot prints, because that would be adding a pollutant that would be dangerous to the environment there. They don't want your stuff in their lake. Ah, cool. Yeah, thank you, Ray. Yep, that's definitely it. Seems like a father and a couple of kids over there, and I can probably hang out over here in the little shady area and get her to chase some sticks for me real soon, and she'll be real happy then. Yesterday we went river hopping. Every little stream, every little creek. I stop. We play for a little bit. We go to the next one. We stop. We play for a little bit. It's like Disneyland for her. She got to go on every new ride every time. It was fun. Oh yeah, she definitely. She doesn't swim, but she'll wade. Oh, thank you, Ray. You're awesome. Oh yeah, I'm up to $2,500, so a little over halfway to the first goal, and I should be able to get my tow package put on, and then I could start looking for maybe pop up, so I can take some longer weekend adventures and get further, into a different stay or completely into a different location, and be able to do some other things and record some different places. That would be freaking awesome. I can't wait. Yeah, you're welcome, everyone. Roger, thank you. Great information as always. Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really glad you're all hanging tough with me on my channel. I really appreciate you. Oh, just go to my GoFundMe. You just look up fund, and you gotta spell out Northwest, the whole word, Native Trackers, Bigfoot Expeditions, and it'll take you right to my GoFundMe page. You can do a one-time donation, or you can put on a reoccurring payment. A couple people have, one person's got a $3 a month reoccurring payment. Another person's done a $10, and some people can just afford to do 10 or 15 bucks at a one-time donation. I'm good with all of it. I'm really lucky that people are coming forward to help me, because I really do want to get out to the different locations I was educated in and try to record and document those locations and tell more lore about them, and introduce you people to some of those spots, because I'm sure very few know about them. Yeah, I've been working a lot. I've been doing 40-hour weeks again finally. So I've been pretty tired, and I've just done stuff on the weekends when I can get out during the day. Every once in a while, I've been able to do a little bit, but it's been slow going. Yeah, it looks like the area is picking up now that the heat's starting. I think I'm gonna go join. Yeah, I'm glad you finally caught a live tube, Roberta. All right, everyone. You have a great afternoon and enjoy whatever part of the world you're in. Love y'all and thank you for hanging tough. Appreciate y'all. And feel free to peruse my live list and my posts section. When you first go in, there's that little reader bar that'll tell you you can access video, shorts, etc. Unfortunately, you have to scroll left to get to my posts. I put up some information on Kana and a little bit on some of the recent, close at hand captures. A baby Ishka, an adult Oma up a tree. So there are a few still pictures of new cryptids that I've caught in the last couple of months. So feel free to go jump over and take a look at that stuff. And I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great day. Thank you so much, everyone.